Kia ora and welcome to the Itinerary. Today's episode will concentrate on travel and transport, which is a huge sector within the overall tourism industry. It covers car rentals, public transport, taxis and Ubers, cycling, sailing, scenic train journeys, and of course, the big two, air travel and cruise ships. New Zealand's popularity as a cruise destination has skyrocketed in the past few years. If cruise passengers were a country, it would rank third behind China as a source of international visitors. In the last season alone, it brought in almost $570 million to our economy. However, it is a controversial industry. Cruise ship population has been under scrutiny for several years, and the recent proposal to expand the mooring dolphin in Auckland was met with fierce retaliation. Air travel is undoubtedly the easiest way to jet around the world, and its importance to New Zealand tourism is undeniable. The headlines of late, however, have been upsetting to read. Thousands of redundancies, airlines going bankrupt, billions of dollars being distributed as credit for unlucky travellers or not in some cases. So to talk us through this, I have two very big names from the tourism industry on our panel today. Norm Thompson, former Deputy CEO of Air New Zealand, and Debbie Summers, Chairman of the New Zealand Cruise Association. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We've all been terribly hit by this pandemic. Debbie, for you in particular in the cruise industry, can you talk to us? How are you feeling? How has it been impacted? And what are the positive recovery modes that we're going to take from here?
Look, I think it's fair to say that any sector in tourism has been pretty smashed around the face with the pandemic.
Yep.
But in particular, cruise has been at the pointy end of this, that's for sure. The cruise industry, the media are fascinated by the cruise industry.
Sure.
It gets a lot of coverage. I think one of the reasons why is that it's a highly visible form of tourism.
Sure.
We have these liners coming into our cities and into our towns, generally right into the heart of the city,
Yes.
parking up for everybody to see, and then a lot of guests coming off and visitors enjoying our communities. So it's very visible, and the media are super interested.
But how have you and your team dealt with it? And what do you say to the outside audience that maybe don't know how you guys have been tackling it from the other side?
Well, I think the cruise industry, once it became sort of more and more aware of the extent of the virus and the how infectious it is, the cruise industry made their own calls into actually stopping operations throughout most of the world. I think there is a lot of work going into health and safety protocols to improve those.
Wonderful.
To learn from medical experts, health and other health authorities, to work with them to come up with some protocols that will actually enable us to start cruising again safely.
Norm, you can talk to us about air travel. My goodness, international borders closed. Look at how aviation has been hit. I mean, the length of time that you think it will take to recover from that. Let's start with now. Massive impact.
Huge impact, Megan. I mean, with the industry, like Debbie, the industry has come off a massive high. People were travelling all around the world. Kiwis, the world's greatest travellers, were flying outbound, were flying domestically within New Zealand. And then we had this terrible pandemic hit us. And, whether you're running an airline or a cruise ship company or you're in charge of a country as far as the government is concerned, safety is absolutely paramount, okay? And I think that's where here in New Zealand we've been quite fortunate to be able to contain it the way that we have. But it's a massive impact on airlines. As far as the airline is concerned, yes, you're having to park up the aircraft. And it's not just a matter of parking the aircraft. The aircraft have to be parked up in a way that they can be secure, that the engines can be looked after. They've got to be truly mothballed correctly. And then you've got staff waiting to see whether the borders are going to open up again. As a crew member said to me the other day, I'm sitting in the parking lot at the moment.
Oh.
But the good news, and there is some good news, is that Air New Zealand is now flying 70% of its domestic capacity in New Zealand. Kiwis, as I said before, we're the world's greatest travellers. They want to get out. They want to go and do stuff. We like to get out. We like to do stuff. So that we need to grab hold of that and find ways and means to keep that stimulated. And poor Debbie here is trying to get a cruise ship going around New Zealand for New Zealanders, and we should be encouraging that sort of thing to happen.
Sure.
We've got to remember also, Megan, that New Zealanders spent $4 billion overseas last year.
Let's spend it at home if we can.
Yeah.
We should actually have domestic cruising in this country right now. It should be starting today. We can quarantine the crew as the ship is coming here. We have cruise lines like Ponant who are lining up ready to put fleet here. Kiwis, don't forget, we love to cruise. Over 100,000 of us last year cruised. 1 in 3 actually picked a cruise starting off in Auckland, doing a few ports around Auckland, and then moving on to the Pacific, for instance. So when we also get those safe travel corridors going, which we have to, then cruise has quite rightfully has a prominent place in a leisure choice for Kiwis. We actually could have been leaders in the return, the restart of a very safe and controlled, call it a phasing back into cruising in this country. Unfortunately, we're not going to be, because Norway, for instance, has already started with domestic cruising, hugely popular with a cruise line called Hurtigruten. Iceland has started as well. Taiwan started with a 1,900 passenger ship which left port yesterday.
Yes.
They're doing coastal cruising again with Taiwanese. A lot of this is domestic cruising with your own nationality on board. It lowers the risk. I mean, Air New Zealand is flying all over the country. The bookings are there, the demand is there. It would be for cruise as well.
With those workers, with our staff, our colleagues, our wonderful New Zealanders out there who have been displaced from their current work environment, what is the recommendation? What are some of the advice pieces that you can share with our audience?
Well, Megan, I think firstly, I think we've got to be very careful what we convey to those people that unfortunately have lost their jobs. And this is where leadership really does come into it. I don't think you can actually say to these people that we hope to have you back soon, because realistically that does just not seem to be going to happen in the near future. When we are very fortunate here in New Zealand to be in the position that we're in. We need to keep it that way. To be able to think that we're going to be able to have our borders open with an influx of people when there's still a COVID out there quite significantly. I talked about the person in the parking lot. I don't think they're going to be brought in from that parking lot in the near future. But there's other opportunities out there as well. And I think this is where we need some very good leadership in this country, particularly. Let's look after Kiwis. There's too much short-term thinking at the moment. We need a longer-term plan in terms of how can we actually create some new industries in New Zealand using some of the great talent that we've had to let go. And these people are incredibly talented. I can tell you there's a lot of air crew, as an example, that have been let go that are very well degreed, very smart people. But we've got to start thinking of a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, not just today.
Great.
And that's the only way that I think that what you're asking me, my own view, it's a personal view, that we can get out of that. We've got to start thinking differently.
I think one of the biggest tragedies of this whole COVID era that we're in is the loss of IP for the tourism industry. We're every day that we're not operating, thousands of people are losing their jobs. They have to pay mortgages, they have to work. What I can say about the cruise industry is that it's enormously resilient. It has big investors, big financial backing. The demand is still there. The bookings are going through the roof for 21, 22. We're even looking at itineraries for 23, 24. So my advice would be, please don't give up on tourism. And it isn't. We're in a pause situation, a very unusual situation right now. People will have to pay their mortgages. They'll have to seek work elsewhere, but come back.
Debbie, tell me, what is your future hopes for your cruise industry? What is your hope for the future of cruise?
Norm and I were talking just before we came in about the word normal.
So many new normals.
New normals, and even was it a bad thing? I happen to have been incredibly proud of the cruise industry, in particular the New Zealand and the Australian cruise industry. A fantastic, lots of flags to wave and reasons to be proud. So I would like to see, as soon as it is safe to do so, for us to be going back to what we did. There's a great future ahead.
Norm, predictions. Air travel, aviation. Talk us through your predictions.
Look, Megan, as I said before, we are very fortunate that we've got a very strong domestic market. Okay, so in the good year, we come off the back of $42 billion of tourism receipts. Over half of that was generated by Kiwis travelling within New Zealand.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a fantastic base to work on. We need to continue to build on that and get that $4 billion that was being spent overseas, being spent back in New Zealand. And then as we can, and Debbie said it as well, as we can, we will safely open up the borders. But safety is absolutely paramount. We cannot afford to open up our borders and have that pandemic be immigrated into New Zealand, because we'll all be back to where we were 3 months ago.
Absolutely
and we can't afford to do that.
But there are safe ways to help our economy, and domestic cruising is one of them.
Yeah.
So let's...
She had to get that in.
I did, and I hadn't done it before. Exactly, but cruise was a $680 million economic benefit to this country. Within the next 5 years, we were looking at $1 billion. We know Kiwis love to cruise. We can be doing it, just as I say, with the domestic air routes that are happening. We're 70% back to where we were.
Why
aren't we on the water?
Well.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely. Back again for our second episode is Jason Binks. Let's check out what he has to say this time.
The world of work is changing, and in tough times, these expectations are only increasing. It used to be we went to work, got paid, went home. At the end of the year, there was a review, and if we got it right, it may come with a pay rise. As the pace of change increases, so does uncertainty, and in this uncertainty, we look for more from our careers. Why are we doing this? What part can I play in making this happen? Am I leveraging my strengths? Strengths develop early in life and are the unique skills, talents, and abilities that help us to navigate the good and the challenging times of our lives. Examples include talking to people in elevators, airplanes, supermarkets, and wherever you go, having a colour-coded or otherwise organised closet, writing down a list of things to do and sticking to it, figuring out the plot of the movie before anyone else does. Talents are developed early. For example, when you were a kid, you could have made someone smile and got positive feedback, say from your family. You would have then done it around your friends, and they again would have given you great feedback, and then repeated around your teacher, and so on and so on. We repeat our successes until it becomes an instinctive part of who we are. To create momentum in your life, we need to do 3 things. Firstly, to find out who we are and the gifts and talents we have. Albert Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will go about its whole life believing that it is stupid. The more you know who you are and what you want, the less things upset you. Secondly, put a plan in place to become aware of our strengths, to develop them even further. And finally, so that we can in turn give them back to others in your family, as a work colleague, a boss, a friend, a customer.
Thank you again, Jason, for that great advice. If you would like to find out more, contact the man himself via his website, jasonbiggs.nz. Now, as we learnt last week, education plays a massive role in the tourism industry, and we once again have 3 outstanding education and tourism experts joining me on the panel to give us their perspective on studying towards a career in transport and travel. Kylie Wilson is the CEO at New Zealand School of Tourism, which is basically the place in New Zealand to train to become a flight attendant. Kylie, hi, welcome.
Thank you.
How have you been? How are your students? And are you still advising people to study flight attending?
I'm good. My students are amazing, even more positive than you could even imagine, which is great to hear. And yes, we are still encouraging people to study flight attending because as educators, I think it's our role to give them the skills and knowledge to pursue their dreams. And if that's their dream, then they should absolutely be able to study that and choose to do that. But what we are encouraging them to do is to study for longer term. And that means that they are actually signing up for flight attending plus maybe a travel and tourism diploma as well, to kind of widen their opportunity market. And the students are absolutely buying into the longer term gain, and they're certainly not short-sighted. So the students have got a good view of what's going on, and they're in it wait it out.
But in saying that, you know, some of our flight attendant trainees are straight out of school. We've had airlines like Virgin Australia shut their doors for now, here in New Zealand anyway. And so there are much less routes available to our flight attendee trainees. What do we say to them?
I actually think that the message to those students hasn't changed too much, because airlines have always recruited in blocks for flight attending. It's not like there's airline crew jobs available all the time. So our message to students has always been about looking at what are the transferable skills that they learn on the programs, and they often will take a hospitality role or another customer-facing role while they wait out for those recruitment days to come up. Now the recruitment days might be a little bit further in the distance and what, you know, and it's devastating what's happened to all the crew, and a lot of them are our alumni, and, you know, we really feel for them. But so we're encouraging them to, you know, make a note of the transferable skills that they've got, but also, again, like I was saying before, to study for longer term, so to sign up for more like a 2-year program that can not only widen their opportunity market, but also give them something to do that's really worthwhile whilst they wait for the tourism industry to rebuild.
And welcome back again, Claire Huxley. Have you noticed a drop in the course registration, and what is the situation for your college right now?
At the moment, we're noticing that, the interest post-COVID is quiet. You know, people are reading, you know, some of the negative perceptions in the media, and they're taking that into consideration.
And is that specifically, in particular, in the aviation courses?
Yeah, the aviation course, I think, is the one that would attract older students, career changers. So maybe that is having, you know, it's having a small impact. But our travel and tourism courses with high school students are at the same levels as they were last year. So I think people are taking the view that they know that aviation is going to be the last bit of the sector to come back, but they're still taking the view this is what they've done at school, this is their passion, like Kylie said. Charlie knows as well, you can't change people's interests and passions, and if they want to be in tourism, they don't see this as a long-term issue.
Nice to have you with us, Charlie.
Thank you.
The CEO of Queenstown Resort College, which is the premium New Zealand tourism and hospitality management training sector department. Have I got that right?
Actually, I couldn't have said that better myself. That's perfect, thank you.
The impact on our operations that you are so right in line with, it's been severe. Our whole travel sector, the transport sector. How are your students coping? And in terms of running hostels, hotels, is there still worry?
There's been a lull, obviously. It's the whole industry's taken a significant hit, and like most industries, actually. But what we found is the students coming through are pretty resilient. They're pretty optimistic about their futures. They understand the opportunities that are ahead of them, and they're looking forward to that. And I think if you look at it from a point of view, we've sort of gone back in time a little bit as a sector. We know what the future looks like, so it's our responsibility to actually reset that and do a better job when the future hits in a couple of years' time, or in 18 months' time, really.
Sure. Is there a trend in courses that are signed up to or not being signed up to? And what is the advice that you give?
Yeah, we've only got a couple of measures. I mean, we're well into the academic year when all this hit, so all our students have stayed on and turned up post-COVID. Our opportunity next year is around ensuring that people still can see an outcome, and all the information we have tells us that those outcomes still exist. You've got an over-reliance at the moment on people on work visas. Unfortunately, there's going to be a reduction in them, which means there's more opportunity for graduates. And the thing that we're really happy about is our graduates largely have managed to keep a lot of their jobs.
Great.
And we've just placed 70% of our internship students who've just left last term 2 weeks ago. So it's coming back. I mean, people plan for a worst case scenario, but it's a little bit better than that. And domestic tourism is strong. We've just come out of school holidays, and Queenstown was as busy as it's ever been. I've been to Northland a few times the last month or two. And
with the courses that you offer, how is it that you're now guiding your students to maybe use what they previously could have aimed for in an alternative tourist department or industry?
We're always pathwaying our students to that management level, and so it's good IP. It's being able to do those basics about marketing, accounting, bits and pieces, good generic skills that can be crossed into any industry. But actually, the goal for these kids is to still come out the other end, and when the bounce hits, they're going to be ready and at the coalface.
Claire, I wanted to ask you to tell me a little bit about the Disney Cultural Exchange Program, and then also, obviously, with the restrictions now with our international borders, how is that affecting students, and what is it that you're now sharing with our students in terms of where to next?
I think the key thing is that Disney is just one of the options open to any travel and tourism student post them studying at level 4 when they're studying the travel and tourism qualification. So we talk to students about all the international options. Now, obviously with COVID, international options is something we're saying you're going to have to change your game plan. And I think, like Charlie's touched on and Kylie's touched on, that's just part of their career planning. Yes. You're just going to have to be transferable, flexible, look at different options. We actually had students who were in Disney, and we were in touch with those students all the time.
And how are they doing?
They were actually taken care of really well. Disney looked after them. They all came back to New Zealand. Actually, 2 of them we've got into different work roles at the Cordis. Yes. So those students, are okay. They were disappointed because obviously that was their dream.
Of course.
But like we've talked to the students as well, what an experience you've had.
Yes,
something
lucky.
to put on your CV.
Right.
And actually they still got there and they still got through the application process. And actually that's one of the key transferable skills is the interview process, because Disney put them through so much. So we've talked to students who wanted to apply for that programme.
Yes.
Obviously, just give them a view of what other programmes they could apply for, but that's all dependent on borders, which is obviously out of our control. So they've just got to shift their focus in terms of domestic tourism, some of the roles here, and then look to the long view. Just got to change your plan.
Awesome. Charlie, I wanted to ask you about Aotearoa, OE. Talk to me about what this initiative is. What is it replacing in terms of the overseas aspect? And just give me some insight. It sounds neat.
Oh, look, it's really cool. It's our big AE. The OE is not an option at the moment, so it's the AE. And we just wanted to do a marketing piece, really, that profiled the broad range of jobs and opportunities within tourism and hospitality. And so we just travelled the country from top to bottom. We had some students out of high schools, and around here, two in Queenstown and one up in the North Island. And they just travelled around and on camera and did a lot of activities, had a lot of fun, but again, just profiled those broad range, because one of the things when COVID hit, we sort of sat around thinking that people don't really understand the broad nature of what tourism or hospitality is. They all see, things that are highly visible, flight crew, for example, but actually it's a really broad, and it employs a lot of people in this country, and it's been the number one industry for a reason for a long time, and we just needed people to understand, appreciate more about what that offers. And the better way to do that was get out and experience it, and if people want to do that for themselves, be my guest, absolutely. But for us, it was really just to get those messages out that, look, you can't kill a $41 billion industry overnight. It can be wounded, but it's coming back.
There's all these messages that are being published. What is the message that you would like to share to our community, to our audience, to our New Zealanders in terms of the benefit and the positive impact that studying tourism can afford each individual?
I mean, we're getting really clear messages from industry talking directly to our students, and the clear message that they're sending is to stay the course, to study longer term, because they really need them for the rebuild. As Charlie said, in 18 months' time, things are going to look very, very different. So my messaging is very much aligned to that. It's don't give up on your dreams, come and study with us, pick a longer term program, graduate in 2022 and be a part of the research. And I think that students and community of New Zealand should be really encouraged and excited by that. Now, as Charlie said, you can't just knock down a $41 billion industry. The tourism industry is who Aotearoa is. It says everything about our country, the mana that it holds and the service that we provide, and just, everything that it sort of encompasses. And I think that the plan for rebuilding tourism, and they're trying to also at the same time fix systemic problems. It's exciting. There'll be lots of new opportunities, jobs that we've never even heard of, which is a cool thing for our students. And so, my message is just exactly what the industry is saying. It's just be really clear on the future of tourism and keep going to be a part of that.
Look, I'll just add to that, just what this highlights is the strategic importance of tourism and the value of it. And I think the message that we're hearing from industry and passing on to our students is one around productivity.
Yeah.
It's for the industry to thrive and learn some lessons from what's just happened. It's be more productive. And to be more productive, you need to be providing authentic experiences. You need to be delivering well. And you need people to go away just real advocates for the destination.
Great.
And to be productive, you need to be trained. I mean, everyone thinks they can do travel and tourism, but actually you can't. It's actually, there's a skill there.
I mean, just on what Charlie said, I would add that, every single industry employer that we've spoke to pre-COVID and during COVID has said, we'll need you guys.
Yes.
We work with the industry really closely. That is why PTs are sat around the table, because we work closely with the industry all the time, and they value what we can provide to them by listening to them and being flexible. And we expect the same of our students.
Right.
And those students are going to be the future of tourism. And they're really excited about this. And I think we should encourage, and if anything's come out of COVID that I think is positive, it will be that the perception of the industry is suddenly valued for how big
good
It
point.
is. And coming up next is Kate Godfrey of Madison Recruitment, who once again will share her fantastic advice with us, followed by the story of Teresa Kennedy, who recently lost her role as a flight attendant with Virgin Australia.
At the moment, there are a lot of really strong candidates who have found themselves job searching. You're not alone. This also means that there are a lot of people competing for jobs. To stand out, the best thing to do is just cover the basics well. The first part of this is sending over your CV and cover letter. It's important to bear in mind that the CV and the cover letter carry different purposes. The CV will outline your work experience, tenure, and education. And generally, the same CV can be used for most applications. The cover letter should be adapted and can be sent in the body of the email, rather than as a separate attachment. In your cover letter, include your visa status, what kind of work you're after, a little bit about your current work situation, such as notice period, and of course, why you want this job. If you think you may be overqualified, it's especially important that you outline why you're applying for this particular role. It's also important to include your contact details on both the CV and the cover letter. Update your voicemail message so it sounds professional, and keep your phone handy for those calls that are about to come through. Also, check the privacy settings on your social media, just in case. Make sure that you're addressing the right company and the right person when you're applying. No one likes to be called the wrong name. With regards to what to include in the CV, keep it straightforward. The purpose of an application is to get you an interview. The application doesn't have to stand alone to get a job offer. It should be 1, maybe 2 double-sided pages and include work experience with title, dates, company name, and a few bullet points explaining what the role consisted of. Also, any education, particularly courses relevant to your industry. If you speak another language, put it in there. Most people in New Zealand are monolingual, so you'll stand out. And for me, I enjoy it when applicants include their personal interests and hobbies. Just keep it short and sweet.
My name is Chris Teal and I'm Head of Operations here at Eat My Lunch. Eat My Lunch is a social enterprise where typically for every item, meal, lunch that we sell, we give a lunch to a Kiwi kid. COVID-19 has had a massive impact on the business. It was a very quick decision-making process to see how we can keep rolling and keep those lunches going out to the kids. We started producing essential boxes, fruit, vegetables, key items. So we were in a unique position to be able to take on new staff. Obviously with COVID-19, such a shame seeing such wonderful people being laid off, knowing that they were available and knowing that they're just wonderful individuals, having these lovely people at a very busy time. For us it was an absolute win-win.
Hi, my name is Teresa. I was a flight attendant flying for 13 years for Virgin Australia. I was recently made redundant. I am now with Eat My Lunch as a production assistant. COVID-19 has impacted my industry. There are some days where you just don't want to get out of bed, feeling lost. I mean, flying was my passion. That was what I was going to do forever. I had so many goals. We've all been affected, and it's actually quite heartbreaking to see this happening. But just hang in there, get as much support as you can, reach out. I actually didn't want to look at anything before, but there is help there. So get online, have a look, and don't be afraid to ask for help. She's given me the opportunity to come here, and just what we're doing here is amazing, and we are learning new things every day.
Look, these guys add so much value to any organisation. They are hardworking, they're used to working in tough environments, used to long hours, and they have such a customer-focused orientation to them.
Definitely attention to detail, time management, team player. Coming from the airline industry, we had to think fast up in the air. We couldn't just ask the captain to stop. So the ability to come up with solutions, that's been major.
There are a lot of organisations out there that need those skills at the moment. These people are becoming available. Why would you not want to make use of them? So yeah, get them on board, bring them on.
That's it for this week's show. Join us next week when we will be discussing hospitality with another fantastic lineup of industry professionals and educators. I look forward to chatting with you all again, same time, same place. Go with tourism, supporting our tourism workforce. Haere rā.